Magic. I'm going to go over some deck building and a couple of my old decks. Thanks for coming out, Void. Glad to see you. Yeah. A lot of people have dabbled in a few over the years, and some stick with us longer than others. But basically, I'm going to go through some of my old general principles for building decks. Now, I should be upfront. I don't keep up with the modern formats all that much, but 60 card constructed is my bread and butter. That's what most of my decks, when I think about building a deck, that's what I default to. And my approach on that is I sort of play a loose vintage style. So I will take it to basically anything you've got goes. Yes, there's a restricted and banned list. So I avoid anti cards, things that are restricted in vintage. I generally
Buried one honey or two.
Will keep the one copy. I don't know how big a honey is, so
Two, but
whatever you think. And honestly, I play it casual. I've never met anyone who I've played with yet who has trouble flipping a Chaos Orb. So that's usually a fun card that is just free game, and I feel free to play with it when it suits. I don't use it in every deck, but I mean you could, but usually I try and keep decks to an active theme. So we're going to go over two of my old decks today. They're probably a little antiquated. I haven't been updating, especially as creature power creep goes along. I'm sure most of the things in this will seem quite dated, but at the time when I made these and updated them for a while, they were fairly efficient. So let's get this flipped so we can look at cards instead of my mug. Let's see, how do I do that? Oop, and there we go. So we'll start with an Agro Naya build, which was, this is a deck that I used to like to play when I was just looking for something simple, quick, efficient creatures, and try and beat down heavily with them. So it had a lot of classic favorites. One of my favorite decks growing up was actually red, green, and blue. And I splashed blue for a couple of favorite cards, but mainly it was red and green. And it was filled with things like Tinder Walls and Curd Apes and Earnhanded Gins. So a couple of Birds of Paradise too. Not Paradise Chocobo, but the older versions. Now, what's interesting about this deck, when you're building a deck for 60 cards, usually cards you want to get a lot, you want to get a lot. Red, green, and black. Yeah, I had a friend who was big into that color combination for a while, but then he transferred over to, well, he sort of went four color for a while, but he went red, blue, and black for a while, and that was, he'd break out the Solkanar, the Swamp King, and stuff like that. But basically, any card you want to hit regularly, you want 4 copies of in the deck, and then there are a few others that will fill things out that are either restricted and you can only run 1 copy, or you don't want to get all the time, but you want a couple of copies for access purposes. Now, my land base in this is worth far more than the rest of the deck. Just sort of an artifact of the times. I try and use the most efficient land base for this possible because you have so many creatures like the Wild Noctowl and Curd Ape and Loam Lion that it matters which land types you have in play. So you want to make sure you hit those as regularly as possible. So right now I'm just breaking it down. And then we'll talk about the card selections. And again, it's sort of focusing on efficiency mainly. Because this deck is very much, you want to hit your drops, you want to get as many bodies and as threatening bodies as on the board as you could for as little mana as possible. Like I said, a lot of the cards in here are probably a little antiquated now, but that's all right.
Hey,
I'm
Roy.
sure that if you
Hey,
had
Terry. Hey, Ryan.
cards like what's his name, Ravagan Nimble Pilfer would put most of the creatures in this deck to shame, but you just got to work with what you got sometimes.
Yeah, no worries, Void. Take care of yourself.
Yep, thanks for stopping by. I should have had this a little bit better sorted before we started. The other deck I think is, but we'll see when we get there. Alright, I think that's more or less getting close. So, with this deck, it's very important, like I said, to hit your curve. So you want to make sure you're playing a creature every turn for the first few turns, and as big a creature as possible. So the classic Curd Ape is where I've, like I said, this one's been a staple in my decks for a long time. Good value at 1 red mana for a 2/3 once you have a forest in play. And if you start with a Taiga, you've got your forest in play right from the 1 drop you made to play it. So that's good. Excellent. Well, again, thanks for coming out. I started playing Commander a few months ago, and it's really fun to play. Yeah, Commander can be fun too, but Commander's a 100-card singleton deck. So you're never going to have, play sets, and your favorite staple cards aren't going to come up as often. Any sort of combo where you want to get a couple of cards together, well, good luck in Commander unless you're tutoring for both pieces. Oh yeah, it was a staple of a lot of early decks, Curd Ape. I still just love the art on this card too, but nice and simple. A mountain ape that loves the forests. Wild Nektal was the card I chose to pair with it for the 1 spot. It's got 1 for a 1/1 in this case, and it gets +1/+1 for a mountain and +1/+1 for a plains. So in very short order, this is usually a 3/3 for 1 mana. Good sized body. And then to get up to 10 1-drops, because in a 60-card deck, your starting hand is 7. You want to make sure you get 1. So if 1 in 6 cards, 10 1-drops is usually the amount I found to be pretty safe to have at least 1 in your opening hand. So I throw in 2 loam lines. This is basically the white's equivalent of a Curd Ape. So 1/1 for 1, and it gets +1/+2, just like the Curd Ape, for as long as you own a forest. So this was in the World Wake set. Came out a little bit later, but still pretty fun too. Then you get a couple of 2-drops. Now for the 2-drops, you got a little bit more time to find them. I got a set of Watch Wolves that's just straight up 3/3 for 2. Pretty standard nowadays from what I hear, but at the time, this was a very efficient creature. That's not a joke or a pun or play on words. Yeah, I mean, green was very good for efficient creatures. Like I said, the Earnhanded Djinns, and if you wanted other colors, the Mana Birds were always fun too. I threw in the Kelsey Pride Mage. The Exalted ability, again, it's 2 mana for a 2/2, but whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If it's got a blank board, it will make itself a 3/3 to attack with, or it can buff one of your other creatures, which can be important if you're starting to see some opposition. Or paying one and sacrificing it to destroy an artifact or enchantment. I used to love Ronum Unicorn, which was just for white, a 2-mana 2/2 that you could sacrifice to destroy an enchantment. Creatures like that, very handy, because it's still a creature on the board, putting pressure. And if you really need to get rid of an annoying artifact or enchantment, well, you've got an answer ready to go. Yeah, I hope you feel better. And again, thanks very much for coming out, Void. Yeah, get some rest. Then moving into the 3 drops. So yeah, I only had the 6, well, 7, because I also have over here with the odds and ends pile a Gadok Teague came out in Lorwyn. Now they're doing a return to Lorwyn soon here, so this may be on theme for that. He was a Kithkin Advisor, 2/2 for 2. With a couple of extra abilities which could be handy. Non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or greater can't be played. So this will stop your opponent from going ham with big spells. But still lets you play your little ones, cheap ones, and I've got some efficient spells that can be used in multiple ways in this deck. Non-creature spells with X in their mana cost cannot be played. So no fireballs, no brain geysers, no mind twists, anything with an X is right out. So he's handy to have just as a stopgap for those really annoying cards that'll help wreck your, a Wrath of God costs 4, for example. That would wreck your board and give a reset. You don't want that type of card when you're doing this strategy. So, a freezing rain warning in town. That's fun. So then we got the Woolly Thoktar. This is another one from.
That sounded like a different letter.
I don't know what. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a woolly beast. And 5/4 for 3 mana at the time. Again, very efficient. Could put on a lot of pressure if you drop this on turn 3 to follow up your apes and wolves and etc. A little bit later, they came out with a 3 green Baloth that was a 4/5. Those play in my mono green decks. But for this one, the color scheme's perfect. It's usually easy to get all 3 colors by turn 3 with my mana base as it is, which we'll take a look at in a minute. And then to keep the pressure up, I should finish off the creatures. I had 1 creature with a higher casting cost. I threw in an Earl the Miststalker. 5/5 for 5. Earl gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it. I do play a couple of creature enchantments in here, so that can happen, and he can become an even bigger threat. And it can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. So even in a multiplayer game, untargetable is nice. Gives him a little bit more longevity. A bit of a bigger threat for the late game if the game drags into the late game. But you're trying to end the game fairly quickly, and then this deck has some other spells and support things to keep it going. Keep on the pressure, eliminate your opponent's creature that's in the way. Or, if you're just looking for the extra damage to the head to finish off the game, nothing like a set of lightning bolts to get the job done. Most efficient red burn spell that they've come out with. That's generally useful. Again, you can target a creature or player, or these days, a planeswalker. Very highly recommend the lightning bolt. I used to stockpile these because they stopped printing them. This card was thought to be problematic for power level before Dark Ritual was, and so they cut it after 4th edition and stopped printing it for a number of years. Whereas Dark Ritual, they kept printing for almost the first decade of the game. Add some lightning helixes in, a little bit more expensive, but in addition to your 3 damage to target creature or player, you also gain 3 life. So this will help in a race if your opponent's also trying to pressure you back. And again, very useful for either clearing your opponent's creatures or just dealing extra damage to the player directly. Then we've got some cheap buff for creatures that are reusable. Very handy. Play a set of Rancors. I used to play with Carapace back in the day from Homelands. It's sort of the reverse of this card. That one gave +0/+2, and you could sacrifice it to regenerate the creature. So if your opponent was going to just kill your creature, you wouldn't get 2 for 1 usually with that. This is the aggressive version. So you get +2/+0 and trample. So the creatures are already a decent size. This tends to make them into real significant threat size. And if they remove your creature, and Rancor is then put into the graveyard from play, you return it to owner's hand. So if they do kill your creature that's got a Rancor on it, you get your Rancor back and you can put it on something else. So that's handy. And you can build up those threats, keep the pressure on. Then these ones, I only wanted a couple of. Not a card you want to get flooded with in your opening hand, but very handy in the right situation. Armadillo Cloak, I'm surprised how many binds it can get me out of. It is a little pricey. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has trample. So again, you're making your creature bigger. And if that's Ural the Miststalker, it's much bigger. Don't laugh, it works. It sure does. That's fun. I always liked that quote. And whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. Now, you could be, in more modern times, you tend to just see that as the creature gains lifelink, trample, and +2/+2. This is actually mechanically different than just lifelink, and it matters a lot, because I've gotten into a pinch where sometimes my opponent will get a big flying creature, like a dragon, that is just too big for my lightning bolt to handle. And it's going to start whacking me to the face for a whole lot of life. In that case, I've stuck the Armadillo Cloak on my opponent's dragon or other big threat that I can't deal with. And yeah, it can come in and attack me for 10, but then I'll just gain the 10 life right back, and basically it's useless for it to attack me. So this card can even be used that way to hamper your opponent's creatures, even though that's not its primary use typically. But yeah, just a lot of fun, this card, and again, useful multiple ways. Another one that is a nice surprise to pull out regularly, but you don't want it every time. Bathe in Light from Ravnica. So this is a little instant. A lot of the Radiance cards weren't that great. This one I think is one of the better ones. You choose a color, target creature, and each other creature that shares a color with it gain protection from the chosen color until end of turn. So if your opponent's playing a blue deck, all your creatures might have protection from blues, because I'm playing 3 colors. Let's say I've got a Watch Wolf in play, along with a Wild Nectal and a Loam Lion. Then I target the Watch Wolf, and it shares it to my other creatures that share a color with it as well. Okay.
No, I'm just saying that I've noticed that they have the triple blisters for $21.95 instead of $30.
Right.
They're coming down.
You're shopping.
Well, kinda. I'm eye shopping. I'm just
right. The Woolly Thoktar has all the 3 colors in this deck, so again, it, like Ural, and while will share this ability around to all my creatures.
Dog is barking.
And giving protection is a great way to save your creatures. If your opponent plays, again, an Earthquake or something like that, give them protection from red, or to get through their blockers. Because if they've got protection from black and all your opponent's creatures are black, oh, they can't be blocked by anything. So you can just swing right through their defenses and get in that extra damage for the kill. Yeah, these are extremely handy, both on defense and offense. So I find they're a very useful add to this deck, which again is all about tempo and trying to keep the pressure up. Now we'll get to the land base, which is probably, technically the all-star of the deck. This was the first dual land that I collected a play set of. These aren't all from my... Oh man, that's not wanting to focus, is it?
Sorry.
Wow, is that not wanting to focus?
Just put like kind of go like that, and then
Well, that's what I was doing, but
Okay.
anyway. Or I thought I was. Anyway, but Tega, the picture, honestly, it makes me feel at home. The mountains with the snow and the evergreen trees, and yeah, this. I grew up near the Canadian Shield, and that was similar. But now I live near the Rockies, and
I grew up
it's
in the
very
Canadian
much.
Shield.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, it makes me feel at home. I've always loved this art. It's a great card. Plays fantastic with Kurt Ape and a bunch of others. Um, so yeah, those had to stay for a deck like this. Over time, I accumulated more dual lands. I don't have a full play set of each, but I got pretty close. Honestly, I think I have like 34 out of 40 if you were going for 4 of each. So I've got at least 2 copies of each one. I always liked the revised plateau, but I was interested when I found out that it wasn't the original artwork. And I managed to get my hands on a copy of an unlimited one, this only unlimited dual land. And I got it partially for the fact that I can compare the artworks. So there you go. There's the original artwork for Plateau. And then I don't know if they lost the file and had to replace it or they just decided to update it. But for revised, they come out with a new version with the little guy on horseback up there on the ridge. I do like that one very much. There's your mountain and plains. And then Savannah. And I've got 2 Savannahs. And that's your white or green. And the dual lands are a great way to start it off. And what's even better is finding the perfect fetch land for whatever colors you're missing. And that's where the fetch lands come in. And I always like to have a few fetch lands for that purpose, but not go overboard. I like to have more actual lands in the deck than lands that I'm just getting rid of to get more. These can work great with a Tamaragoyf if you want to land in your deck. Landfall decks love these fetch lands.
Oh, can I tell you what?
But to me, they've
What
always
now?
just been
Okay.
a way to augment my dual lands. And sometimes there's extra synergies there too. I've got 3 of the Arid Mesa. That one I got a little bit more copies of when Zendikar came out, and I was just excited to pick some up. Onslaught, I was a little slower to get into, but eventually I got at least one of each of the Onslaught ones for the set. I've already shown off the set, and I had to pull 2 of these out because I had 2 of these in my Onslaught set. A couple of cards are missing. The Unlimited Plateau was in my ABU binder. So there were a few of these cards which I've pulled out of this deck at times, but generally speaking, they really help smooth your mana fixing. Great way and great combination to go with original duels or the modern shocklands as well. Well, they're not modern anymore. I'm sure there's lots of different versions of things. And then I wanted to have a couple of each basic in there as well for a couple of reasons. One, non-basic lands are just more vulnerable to things like land destruction, wasteland, things like that. It's good to have a few basics. If your opponent plays Blood Moon, well, having plains and forests in the deck that won't automatically just turn into mountains could be handy. At least if they do turn into mountains, I do have, let's see, 8 cards in the deck that can be played with mountains alone, but you do want some other mana available. So, just as a safety net, I find it's always handy to have a few basics in the deck, and that's what I did to fill out the space in these. I used to run in here Isomara Hound of Conda. That got shifted to a different deck, and when I was doing that, I would run Caracas. And Castle Evangelo, maybe, for the white. Just extra abilities. But again, if you come across a Blood Moon, that can be problematic. I do have the Kelsey Pride Mage, Qualsi Pride Mage that can take care of one if it's in play. But if it hits the table before this guy's in play, I have a real hard time getting it down. So there you go. So again, just hitting your curve, your 1-drops, more 1-drops, up to 10 1-drops, then your 2-drops. Want to make sure you've got enough of those. 3-drops, again, you can usually get by with a few less. And then just other cheap 1-2 cost spells to keep the pressure on, removal, damage, pump your creatures, little recursion, protect your creatures, get them through, extra damage, slow your opponent if you have to, and just keep that pressure up. Oh, I forgot. I showed the 2 creatures in this pile. I also threw in a couple of giant growths, and they're just
It was
classic to turn a combat if your opponent does get a blocker out. And even if they don't, you can just throw it for 3 extra damage if it's a pinch. So another classic addition that works just well and is a great tool to have. Keep your opponents guessing. I'm sure there are better ones now that can have extra effects, but just the simple playing by numbers game was always my favorite. So yeah, there's the
bear looks cool.
bear.
Terminal of
Oh, on
Life.
the
Yeah.
giant growth, yeah. Good old grizzly bears or other bears. These two must have slightly different batch of sleeves. I'm gonna have to correct that because they kind of seem marked, don't they? And then the classic land base. Like I said, I usually don't run more than 6 fetches. Just because I find after that it gets to be a little bit too much. Honestly, the land base in this deck is where all the value is if you're concerned about value by far. But oh yeah, look at that. The lands are, a lot of them are in sort of different size sleeves too. I usually don't pay much attention to that, to be honest. When they're all mixed together, it's hard to tell. But if I was going to a more serious event, yeah, you want your sleeves to match. You don't want to have cards sticking out like that. That's not something that's perceived as fair and fun. Now, this is a deck that I talked a little bit about, and I want to do the same sort of breakdown for it. It's a very different deck. That one is just about hitting your curve, being aggressive, getting some useful creatures in play. This one is a little bit trickier. This is the Eureka Surprise. So the titular card for this deck is Eureka. Both players may take any permanents in their hand and put it directly into play. Players take turns putting one card from their hand into play until neither wants to play more permanents. No spells or effects of any kind can be used while the Eureka is in effect. So while this is resolving, it's just rules text, basically. And X's or zeros if there's X's available on any of those permanents you're putting down. So this card is fun. Lets everyone do some crazy stuff. But your hope in this deck is to have bigger, crazier stuff than your opponent has. So that's the idea. So the titular card, you want to be running that. You're also going to need some big bruisers, things that'll really have a big impact when you play them, and hopefully a bigger impact than anything your opponent has to play. Here's Grizzlebrand. This is from, was that Avacyn Restored? Or was that, I'm trying to get the expansion symbols down there. Shoot. What was the other one in that block? Anyway, it'll come back to me eventually. But this was a big, nasty demon. 7/7 for 8. Flying, lifelink, can swing a lot of damage. And you can pay 7 life to draw 7 cards. So it refills your hand. And you can just, yeah, big, swingy creature that has a lot of effect.
Somebody liked and then unliked.
Yeah, well, people make mistakes and misclicks. So, Living
I
Wish.
didn't need to like that.
This can be fun. Go choose a creature or land you own from outside the game. Reveal that card and put it into your hand, and then remove Living Wish from the game. So, I usually bring a deck box with a bunch of different decks. And some of my other decks also have big fun stuff in them. Stuff like Blightsteel Colossus or Darksteel Colossus, or other things, other Eldrazi decks or things like that, where you can go find something big to go put in and have fun. Or you could even use this to go get a land if you were short a land and be able to cast your stuff. So it's just one of the fun tutors that I threw into this deck to make sure you've got stuff to play with your Eureka, basically. Then we've got our lands. These are pretty basic for the most part. This is my secondary combo. I talked about this last time because I was excited since I already have this combo in this deck. And recently,
Thank you, Ryan.
recently they printed Avatar: The Last Airbender and came out with Earthbending, which turns your lands into creatures. And it gives them a little protection. If the land dies or is exiled, return it to the battlefield. People can abuse that with fetch land, so they can use their fetch land
Have you
because of that to go get.
one into it?
No, I have not. This is not part of the deck. These are just examples
I see.
of earthbending cards. Anyways, but so people have been using things like that with the fetch lands to go get a land with it once it's earthbent, and then it comes back, and you can go get another land with it, or on strip mine to destroy a land and then destroy another land. So you get double use out of your sack lands of various forms with this guy too. But if you're playing with just, to be aggressive and you're animating one of your basic lands, then that does half my combo for me. So, but this combo was animate land. Nemesis was not a good set, but it had a couple of interesting cards in it. This was an uncommon, as you can see. This was early on, actually, in the days of colored set symbols. But for 1 green, for instance, until end of turn, target land is a 3/3 creature that stole land. So if your opponent attacked you with a white or black knight, all of a sudden, one of your lands becomes a creature big enough to take down the knight and live. Could be a nice little surprise, or they're not expecting your land to become a creature and attack them when they leave an opening. So there's that. But I like to pair it with Eradicate. And remove target non-black creature from the game. Search its controller's graveyard, hand, and library for all copies of that card, and remove them from the game. That player then shuffles his library. So ordinarily, your opponent's playing 1 to 4 copies of a creature, because you can only play up to 4 of most creatures, unless it's a Nazgul or something that lets you, heir apparent, which weren't around back then. And you get to go and take them all out of their deck, so they'll never get to play another one that game. Well, if they're in mono red or mono anything, really, they probably have a lot of basic lands. So you turn one of their basic lands into a creature, then eradicate that, and they lose not only that land, but any other copies of it in their hand, graveyard, or deck. So hopefully they've still got enough lands to do whatever they want to, because they're going to be hampered from that point on. So that was backup sort of combo to the Eureka big stuff main plan. So some other big creatures that I threw in here just because they were fun and I could was Imperial Archangel. Again, Shards of Alara. This was the first set that actually introduced Mythic Rarity, I believe. And I'm not a fan of Mythic Rarity overall, but gives me a chance to play some of these big beaters that I picked up over the years. So this is another 8-cost monstrosity that ordinarily won't see play in very many decks. But Flying Shroud, so it's hard to get rid of. 5/8 is a pretty decent body, not the most aggressive, but all damage that would be dealt to you is dealt to Imperial Archangel instead. So this helps you on the defense to keep you alive after they also got to play a bunch of big creatures onto the board. So there's that. Oops. There's another tutor, and the classic, of course, demonic tutor. Go through your deck to find anything. That's another handy tutor. Spirit of the Night from Mirage. This was another classic, very outclassed now, especially for its cost 9. Ridiculous. Flying, trample, protection from black. Originally, that was a double-edged sword that was put on there to keep you from being able to reanimate this with a animate dead or dance the dead type enchantment effect that reanimated a dead creature. First strike when attacking, and it's unaffected by summoning sickness, so haste in the modern phraseology. But a 6/5 big beat stick. Again, by today's standards, nothing special, but this one still is. However, it's a little bit different. Emrakul of the Ant turn can't be countered. We're not playing it, so if you're putting it into play with Eureka, that doesn't matter. When you cast Emrakul, take an extra turn after this one. Again, we're not casting it, so that doesn't matter. But it's still a 15/15 with flying, protection from colored spells, and Annihilator 6. That matters. It's a pretty big threat in body still, even though you don't get the extra turn. And when it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, owner shuffles it back into their graveyard, or back into their library from their graveyard. So that's, again, a clause to stop reanimation, but this isn't a reanimation deck. This is a Eureka deck, so that doesn't matter. We also threw in Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre, and again, you're not casting it, so you don't get the destroy effect, but it's still a big body with Annihilator 4, and it's indestructible. So there's that. Another big beat stick. Speaking of big beat sticks, here's another classic, Progenitus. 2 of every color, monstrosity, 10 to cast, but we don't have to worry about that when you're just putting it into play. Protection from everything, 10/10, which means it can't be blocked, incidentally, at all. And again, if it will be put into a graveyard, reveal it and shuffle it into its owner's library. So there you go. You can want a tutor for it. We're going to want extra copies of Eureka. They're not easy to find, so I do have 2 Italian copies. We were fortunate enough to come across some Italian legends for not too expensive about 15 years ago, and had great fun opening 2 booster boxes worth of it. And in those 2 booster boxes, amongst other things, pulled 2 Eurekas. And my brother had given me an English one. So I've got one for reference if people want to read it. People can always look up the text online for reference too, but 2 fresher, mintier copies, fresh out of packs that we opened 15 years ago, so not so fresh anymore. But so we've got 3 copies of the titular Eureka card. A little bit of mana fixing never hurts. So we got Return to Ravnica, Overgrown Tomb, Woodland Cemetery from Innistrad. That was the block I was thinking of earlier. Here's a Palaka Worm. Being green, this one actually can cast. If we don't get the Eureka, this one, 7 mana is still very expensive, but potentially I could still actually just hard cast this if I had to. 7/7 Trample. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 7 life, so that helps counter some of the threats that are going on by that point, hopefully. And when it's put into a graveyard, you get from the battlefield, you get to draw a card if they have an answer for it. Not a bad little body. Certainly more efficient than the old Scaled Worm was. But not quite the super huge threats that some of these are. Snow-covered lands. Again, this was something that I used to include in a lot of my decks that had more than 2 or 3 basics, like the other, well, I guess the other land has 4 of 3 different types. But including some snow-covered lands actually can give you some protection from shenanigans like the Animate Land Eradicate, because if they do that to my forests, I still get to keep my snow-covered forests in my deck. So you've got that as a backup plan. Then some Mana Elves. Not quite as good as Landmore Elf, in my opinion. I guess there are shenanigans you can do with this. For example, if you've got a Murmuring Bosk or something that's a forest with other effects, you can get more options out of it. But in general, I I just prefer the classic. But if you don't have spare Lawnmower Elves and you're building the deck in a hurry, these will do the job. It's still a 1/1 for 1 that you can essentially tap to get more mana. So that's its function. Help you to play your Eureka a turn sooner, or power out your other combo a turn sooner. Here's another Imperial Archangel, because why not? Lands, very important. There's a Lawnmower Elf. This one's 5th edition. I used to like keeping different editions of the Lawnmower Elf because unlike a lot of other cards, for a while there, they were putting a different flavor text on each time. So I enjoyed finding the different flavor. Swamp's Dark Ritual, again, I said Dark Ritual, they were printing over and over and over again. It lasted longer. Of the original 3-for-1 instance, Ancestral Recall, they stopped printing that after Unlimited. 4th edition, they cut Lightning Bolt. Dark Ritual, it hang around a lot longer. It was still in up to 7th edition, I think. Plus Urza's Block, Mercadian Masks. Yeah, it was still going strong for a long time. It's a good piece of acceleration. You're basically trading a card to get the mana buff for 1 turn, so I don't think it's as broken as some people seem to, but I think it was at least for a long time considered fair. Then again, so was Strip Mine. Elvish Piper. This is a backup plan in case I can't find a Eureka. This usually will attract your opponent's removal in a hurry. As soon as this hits the board, they will try and get it off the board. Because it's basically one at a time, one-sided Eureka. Pay a green, tap it, put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So it does basically the same thing, just one at a time per activation. But that can still swing you a game in an awful hurry. And like I say, similar idea, a little slower to get the job done, but it doesn't hurt to have a backup plan because I've only got 3 Eurekas. Avatar of Woe, another classic creature. This one, again, was this from? It wasn't Nemesis. It was the same block, though, I think. But this is the Time Spiral reprint. Anyway, there was an avatar for each color. This was probably the most popular. Avatar of Fury saw a lot of play amongst my friends as well. But, yeah. Fear, 6/5, so it can't be blocked except by black creatures. And tap to destroy a creature. It can't be regenerated. So super assassin effect. If your opponent plays something big and nasty as well, you can use this to clear it. If there are 10 or more creature cards in all graveyards, it's only costs 2 black. So again, this is potentially castable in this deck. So put that in that pile. More basics. Another worm. More basics. Time of Need, another handy tutor. This one's from Champions of Kamigawa. Search your library for a legendary creature card. Reveal it and put it into your hand. So you got to reveal it. Not as secretive as Demonic Tutor. But again, there's lots of big legendary creatures in this deck, whether it's the Eldrazi, the Progenitus, Spirit of the Night legendary? Yeah, it was. Well, Summon Legend, Grizzlebrand, yeah. Lots of things I could use this to go get. And just have in my hand for when I eventually get the Piper or the Eureka. Handy tutor. More Eradicate. More Living Land. More Swamp. More Dark Ritual. More recent Lawnmower Elf. So there's a playset of Lawnmower Elves. So after I run a playset of Lawnmower Elves, usually I'll go for Findhorn Elves as my second pick. But apparently I didn't have those handy, so Arbor Elf. Swamp.
Sorry, I'm not very
So
good.
this deck is obviously not as concerned about mana curve, as you've noticed. Basically, I've got a couple of cheap things to play turn one, like the elves, and those will help gear me up for bigger other turns. Then hopefully with the aid of a dark ritual, I can get into the bigger, nastier stuff like the Eureka or the Eradicate combo. Or just paying things, because Spiritmonger here is totally castable as well with that sort of a setup. 5 cost, 6/6. This used to be incredibly efficient back when it first released in Apocalypse. 2 positive abilities on here. Well, 3 positive abilities, actually. One is pretty irrelevant most of the time, but whenever it deals damage to a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Spiritmonger. And pay a black to regenerate it if it gets destroyed or, just damage in combat. And it can become the color of your choice until end of turn. That's rarely important, but sometimes it can be. Is that good or bad? I don't even know.
It's coming down.
Okay.
The Pokemon
So that one's castable.
Go Mewtwo.
And, ooh, this one is almost castable, but not quite. The red mana could be troublesome. But the good old Hellkite Overlord, another one of the mythics from Shards of Alara. Honestly, as far as dragons go, this was a preview card when they did the From the Vault Dragons, the 15th anniversary of Magic special dragon-themed celebration set. They included Hellkite Overlord, even though Shards of Alara hadn't released yet. But yeah, 8 mana for an 8/8 flying trample haste, so it can hit hard the turn it comes into play. It's got fire breathing, just like your classic Shivan Dragon. Also, you can pay a green and a black, which this deck has, so that ability is useful, to regenerate Hellkite Overlord. So it still comes down, hits like a truck, is big, and can regenerate. So, nice little surprise in this deck if you want to do something hasty. I'm trying to remember. Spirit of the Night had haste as well, yeah, so could hit a couple of big hasty bodies. The dragon has no pretense of compassion, no false mask of civilization, just hunger, heat, and need. There you go, big bruiser. Another forest, another elvish piper. I'll put one of those for counting purposes and by counting purposes, I just mean, again, 15 stacks of 4 is 60 cards. That's how I usually plan my decks. Usually I've got a third of that, 20 as lands. Sometimes a little bit of extra land spills over, but usually about that, especially if I've got other mana acceleration stuff. Here's a Whirly Tutor. Here's another way to search up something key and get it on top of your deck. The end of your opponent's turn, it's an instant, so you could... Oh, I better go get that Elvish Piper, because I've already got a lot of other big things in my hand. Or whatever. Another Dark Ritual, another Eradicate. And... yeah, I'll stick that up there. So there's my... If I zoomed out a little bit, I've got my basic lands down here. Forests, 2 stacks of forests, 2 stacks of swamps. Fifth stack has a couple of double lands and a couple of forests. Want the extra green because my first turn play hopefully will be an elf. I've got 6 1-drop elves in the deck between the Lawnmower Elves and the Arbor Elves. And then I'm into tutoring or ritualing and trying to cast, again, these would be my more castable creatures. If that's your more castable stuff. Yeah, in this deck. Because that's not the plan. The plan is to Eureka them out or Elvish Piper them out if that fails. And again, I got some rituals, tutors to find what you need, and the Animate Land Eradicate combo. If you need to just slow them down and it doesn't look like that's going to be particularly brutal, you can just use this as a creature removal spell as it was intended. Get rid of, your opponent's most troublesome creature that's about to attack you. That can certainly be an option as well. And Animate Land to slow down their assault on you is You can just play them that way until you see an opportunity to make good use of the combo. Anyway, so that's this deck, and that's basically how I put it together. This one, like I said, the other one was based around curving out. This one was based around, I want to do crazy stuff with Eureka, and while I'm at it, let's have a backup secondary combo, and then just filling out stuff to make it run a little smoother. Get your mana quicker, find your pieces, and that's how this deck is meant to run. And honestly, it can be a lot of fun. So those are two of my old decks. They're probably both in need of an update. If anyone has any suggestions for cards that would make them better, feel free to let me know. Like I said, I've been opening a little bit more of the recent sets. You know, maybe I could make use of some crazy earthbending stuff in some of these too, or in another one of my decks. Who knows? I've heard people have been finding all kinds of uses for Badger Mokups, so that might. I've opened two of them now. If you haven't been following, I pulled one out of recent day in the Advent calendar pulls, as well as this one, which we got in our Avatar of the Last Airbender.
Apparently, I know how to pick packs.
Stuff. So, yeah, we got a lot to do tonight and tomorrow, and I don't think we're feeling up to doing a gameplay. Otherwise, I might try playing these two games, these two decks against each other.
Ready to go. We're getting a couple nights away, so
yeah,
we have a sitter lined up.
Yes, we do. So there's that.
Yeah.
Just trying to see if I can organize these a little bit better into clusters.
It's very, very rarely that we get out without any kids. So.
Yep. I mean, technically, Grizzlebrand or Spirit of the Night is castable too, but by the time your mana cost is up at 8 or 9, even with a Dark Ritual, you know, it's probably not happening just in the regular course of a game. So, even with a Dark Ritual or 2 and a Lawn War Elf, you know, it's just, yeah. Still, you're probably dead by that point, especially these days. For basic land selections, you know, I like the old classics. Lands that actually say what they do on them rather than just having a big mana symbol or something. I've always preferred. I do prefer black borders. So you've got some here, like here's a Tempest one.
Ryan, are you our one person still watching?
Probably. Or it's you at this point.
Or it's me.
But thanks for coming out,
Ryan
everybody who did. And appreciate the support.
I don't know if it counts me.
If you have more things that you'd like to see, like I said,
Ryan's
I've built
still there. I knew it.
many sorts of decks over the years.
Thank you, Ryan, for coming out.
And I just like to have fun with them. I just don't get to play them as often as I used to.
We're still going to be having some lives and videos and stuff up until probably Christmas. I don't think we're doing any videos. Well, we might do a short or something, like pop up and say, hey, Merry Christmas or something.
We might. I don't know. Which art style do you prefer? The old classics or the newer style? Even where they try to mimic the same sort of design, it still doesn't come across as the same to me. Honestly, M10, what year was that? 2009. Yeah, this isn't new anymore either. But I don't know. There's something about the simplistic old designs that I just enjoy.
The new one, says Ryan.
Yeah, the new one's got a lot more detail. I can see why people would like that, but for me, and then honestly, the wishes that really made tournament play were the Cunning Wish and the Burning Wish. I think the blue and red ones that could go get instants and sorceries. But to me, Living Wish was always the most interesting. Going to get a land or a creature just opened up more possibilities. It was a little cheaper than some of the other ones. Yeah. Well, like I said, I often have other decks handy, so it's easy to go find something outside the game that'll be useful. Anyway,
Should we do a mini raid to JR? He's still alive.
If you want to.
We'll do a mini raid to JR, even if it's just me and Ryan, or us and Ryan.
There we go. So I'll start packing this one up.
Just because we can say we did. Because why not, right?
Why not?
So, I don't know, we might do some magic videos in around the mall when we're there.
We could.
I mean, I've been just mainly thinking of
You never know what
Pokemon.
you're going to find.
Yeah.
Eureka.
You never know. It could be fun just to. Too bad we couldn't have like people helping us film and stuff like that, where we hide cards around the mall and see if people find them.
Well, that would be one way to do it.
Go live and be like, "Hey guys, we're at the West Edmonton Mall. We're hiding Pokemon cards. See if you can find them." That could be actually really interesting.
So, which style of deck do you generally prefer if you build your own decks? Something with a curve and just sort of, beat down aggression straight to the point, or something that's trying to do something a little trickier with combos or tricks and stuff. So, two very different styles, and neither of them is blue. Blue used to be my favorite color for Magic the Gathering, but that's another whole story for another day. As it is, I just like the classics. So whether that's Lawnmower Elf, Dark Ritual, Curd Ape, Lightning Bolt, these are still great cards. Nothing wrong with playing a little old school.
All right, so Ryan, if you're still here and you want to join us for the raid over to JR, or anybody else that might be popping in last minute, just say mini Spokat raid, because we're small. We're tiny raid, and we want to give JR some love. So, anyways, make sure you hit the like button before you leave if you haven't already. I know Ryan has. And make sure you hit the like button over on JR's stream when you get there.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, but we're heading over to JR. He is a Pokemon tuber, but he does some kind of like Price is Right style games and stuff. Anyways, let's go check him out. I hope you guys have a great night. Thanks for hanging out with us, and see you next time.
Bye for now.